people. Alright, on this lovely Sunday morning, my mate Shane's come round to change the brakes on his Porsche. Got my cup of tea here. My wife got me this. And he's going to do one and show us how it's done. Aren't we, Shane?
That's it.
Yeah?
It's done in 10 minutes.
Done in 10 minutes. Alright. Well, we're going to come back and show you the different parts of what we're going to be doing. So, do you want to walk us through, Shane, what we're going to be doing?
First of all, obviously, you want to crack off your wheel nuts before you start to jack the car, because otherwise it's going to be difficult. You'll start spinning around. Take your wheel nuts off, get your wheel off. You're going to take your calipers apart, and we'll push back the pads as well, because we're not going to reuse the pads or the disc. I'm going to show you a trick of just pushing them back without a wind back tool, so you can get your new pads and discs in there. And then there should be a couple of screws holding the rotor on. Take the rotor off once the caliper's out of the way, obviously, and we'll put it all back together with new parts.
All right, nice one. So he's got his parts. Where'd you get your parts from?
I just went on Car Parts for Less. They're pretty cheap. You get them delivered. Annoyingly, they don't have Brembo. They only had one disc that was Brembo, and I didn't want to have two different brands, so I've just got all the same brands. Got my sensor. There's a dampener plate that goes on the front, and that's about it.
All right, mate. You better crack on. Yeah, I'll come back to us. All right, see you guys in a bit. So, Shane's taken off the back just to see if we need to replace them. He's saying we don't need to replace them, right?
No, there's not much of a lip on the rotor, and if you look in there, you can see there's still plenty of meat on the pads. So we just took the wheel off basically to show you it's exactly the same as the front. The only thing that you will see is a difference is the pads are slightly different on the rear, and when you take this the disc off, there'll be like the drum, which is for your emergency brake. So it's just the same concept as the front.
Yeah, so when you're doing the back, you got to put it into neutral?
Well, I've got a manual, so just leave it in neutral. I always leave it in neutral.
All right, leave it in neutral.
And make sure your emergency brake or your handbrake, whatever you want to call it, is off, because otherwise this will not spin.
This will not spin, yeah. All right, cool. And how do you take this one off then? Is it this nut here, yeah?
So same as the front. There's here where the end of the screwdriver is, you just get some long nose pliers, pull that out, that's for the pin. And you just get yourself a drift and a hammer, you knock that pin all the way through. And then...
But you didn't use a drift, did you?
I haven't got a drift because I haven't got all my tools.
So what did you use?
I just used a drill bit.
My drill bit?
Something that's flat.
That is dead now.
It's fine.
Because you smashed it.
It's fine.
With a hammer.
Anyway, we're talking about cars. You push out the pin, that releases that spring clip there. And then on the clip as well, this is your brake sensors. So you pull this one out, you pull that one out. If they're welded in there, you're going to need new ones, but these are good. So that you'll be able to, if you were changing the brakes today, you could reuse these. You just pull that out of the way. And then once you get that done, there's a bolt there, exactly the same. And then this bracket here, you might not be able to see it, but around the back it's held on with a 10mm bolt. So you want to get that out of the way, so then you can pull the caliper back.
This one?
Yeah, you can use that.
Yeah.
Take that bracket off, and it just frees this, and you can just prop it up the top, get it out of the way.
All right, cool. Let's that. Right, Shane's done his the front side on the driver's side, so he's going to do the passenger side and show us what he's done. All right, Shane, you want to take it away, mate?
Yeah, first of all, just run you through the sort of tools you're going to need. Mine are 19mm, so I've got a 19mm socket. You have to check what ones yours are. I've also got my locking wheel nut. You're going to need a breaker bar. Otherwise, you're going to find it difficult to get them off. I've got a ratchet wrench just to take the bolts out after. You're going to need a T55 bit. That's for the bolts on the brake calipers. You're going to need a 10mm socket. That's to take the bracket off that's at the back. You're going to need a cross bit screwdriver, and I've got some flatheads. Only use these if you're going to get rid of both the pads and the disc. If you're going to reuse the disc, don't do the technique that I show you of how to prise the brake pads off. You're going to need yourself a set of little hammers.
That's my carpentry hammer, mate.
Ideally a drift to push out a pin, but Isha's kindly give me this drill bit because we're back, we're ghetto.
I did give it to him, he took it and he's busted it now, so I can't use it.
You're gonna need a little set of needle pliers just for a small job, and then I'd recommend these. Everyone buys wind back tools, but I'll show you how to use these and a bit of rag so you're not damaging anything to push back the pistons and save yourself a bit of money. Okay.
Yeah, quick picture of the picture. What are these cans you got here?
So I've just got, this is just like an alcoholic fast drying solvent spray. This is copper anti-seize, which I recommend putting them on certain bits, usually these bolts, because if you're going to be taking them out again, they get very hot and they can seize in there. And this is easy grip, so if you have a problem getting out a screw, you can put that in the screw heads, which, because of the heat that goes through these discs, sometimes the screws can get seized in there, so it's good to have a bit of extra grip. Okay, so first thing you want to do, I've got the jack underneath the car, but I haven't taken the weight off of it, and I've already loosened all of these off, apart from this one. So while the wheel is still on the ground, loosen it off. Once you've loosened it a few turns, you'll be okay, because otherwise, once you get that up in the air, it will just start spinning.
And just check, yeah, you're not a Porsche mechanic, are you?
I'm not a Porsche mechanic.
No,
I'm
so
not.
What you're saying might be all bollocks.
I'm not a car mechanic. I've just tinkered around with cars and worked on.
It's just an average Joe who owns a Porsche.
Someone let me work on aircraft before, so.
Oh yeah, I've heard. Shane's real job is fixing airplanes, so this shouldn't be too much of a bother.
Ideally, you put an axle stand underneath there, but Ish doesn't value my life that much, so he never bought me one. So we just got the jack, and we pray for the best.
Right, am I going to record you taking off 5 nuts now?
No, you can just leave it.
Come back, yeah, when it's off?
Just when I got the wheel off.
Right, cool.
So, quick overview of what we're going to do. Basically, we want to get the caliper off, and we want to get this off. So, I usually start with the caliper and then take this off after. First of all, there's a little pin here. You might not be able to see it, so literally just comes out like that. Then you've got this pin here that holds the spring. You get your drift, or in my case a drill bit, hammer that through, just tap it out, the pin will come out the other side, and then you'll be able to loosen off the brake sensor pad, brake sensors, and pull the spring out, and then that will give you access to the pads themselves. If you're not, I'm not going to reuse these because I know my sensor's gone off. But if you're going to reuse them, just be gentle when you're pulling them out because the wires may break. That runs up to here. There's a plug up here, and you just pull it out. You just wiggle it; it'll come out. Once you've done that, there is a 10mm bolt that goes on this bracket here at the bottom. Because that's a fixed brake line underneath it, you want to take the 10mm bolt out, and you'll give yourself a bit of freedom so you don't end up cracking any brake lines. Then these are the T55 bits for the bolts that hold the calipers on. And then once you've got all of that off, the caliper should technically be loose, but sometimes because of the pressure on the pistons, they're not, so you just prise the pistons and the pads apart. Pull that off, and then the only thing holding this on is these 2 screws here, which is why I have the easy grip. Squeeze a bit in there just in case they're tight, and then that should come off. Sometimes it doesn't, and if you're going to reuse this, then use a rubber mallet. If you're not bothered about it like me, just hit it from the back there, and once the caliper's out of the way, there, just the alternative, and it'll pop off. If you've got Porsche discs, these are not OEM Porsche discs, but if you've got Porsche discs, there's 2 little holes either side, and you can basically take these screws out of the countersunk and put them through there, and it pushes the disc off the hub. Alright, so I'm going to start off by getting this connector out of the way. A bit of a wiggle. You can see these are not, they would usually pull out, but because mine are seized onto the pads now, that's what makes your sensor go off. So I'm going to just have to rip them out.
I want to get a cup of tea. You want a cup of tea?
No, I'm alright. So this is where you'd use a drift, but I'm using a drill bit. This would be a lot easier if you had the right tool for the job, so to say. So then that makes this spring become loose. Take that, put it to one side, reuse that later. So these are your sensors. They're welded in, as you can see. We're not going to reuse this, so I'm not too fussed. There's a little grease nipple cover on the other side. Basically, you can use that to route the wire. Need to make sure that this pin is all the way through the other side. It's not too tough, as you can see. Wiggle it out at the end, put that to one side, you're going to reuse that. So this next part only do if you're going to replace both the pads and the disc, because you're going to damage the disc doing this. You can see my pads are quite tight, so just get between the disc and the pad, give yourself a little tap. Once you're in, just wiggle it. And then all basically what that's doing is freeing the caliper off the disc, so when you come to remove it, you actually can get it off. See, now it's free to move. Okay, so I might block the angle here, but there's a little 10mm bolt in here. Need to reuse that. Put that to one side. And loosen these bolts, which is T55. A bit tight. They are a bit tight, and we've got a bigger breaker bar or wrench that fits, and just use that. One out. Two out. So theoretically, you should be able to bit of wiggle, take the caliper out.
Oh shit, stop recording.
Oh well.
No, I'm just playing.
Right. Once you've got that out of the way, prep it on something so it's not just hanging loose. Just tuck it in behind there. Just to show you, these pads So there's where your sensor is, and these are dampening plates. You can reuse these, and they basically, you don't always get these on cars because it's Porsche, top of the range, you see. They're dampening, so they provide a dampening effect, and they're on both sides. You can reuse them, but if you're not sure, maybe buy them and ahead of time, and then if they're good, just take your ones back. So then next, what we want to do is get the hub off. They're pretty easy to get out, these screws. They're just literally held on so you can locate them. You can have done this before the caliper come off if you want it. Or you can test yourself like me and do it after. I would definitely recommend doing this before.
It's at this point Shane realised he had messed up and he should have loosened these screws with the brakes on. So do so, and also do yourself a quick favour and open the reservoir tank on your brake fluid. Will make the next bit a little bit easier. Let's continue.
So this is welded on, so I'm going to have to give it a tap. Again, only use a rubber mallet if you're going to reuse the disc. While this is off, I'd just like to give it a bit of a clean. And that's it, ready to put it all back together, exactly the same but backwards.
Alright, what about the pads? You take the pads off and you'll just come back in.
So you didn't see me do this, but off video, I wrapped this in a cloth. It's basically to push these pistons back in here. And we use these. So you put it in a rag so you don't damage it. And then just push the pistons back with your Nipex or your pliers. So if you don't push these back, then you won't get your new pads in because they're thicker than your old ones.
Coolio. Right, now we're done removing the brakes and the discs. Let's fit it all in reverse. Cue extra long montage. All right. Thumbs up, thumbs up.
Do a thumbs up.
Do the thumbs up, man.
This is terrible.
You could. That's the end of the video. Then I can stop. Do the thumbs up.
No.
Huh?
Put your own hand in.
Put your own hand in there. You're not thumbs up in that.
Thumbs up.
It's a terrible job done.
Job done. All right, we got job done. Good job, Shane. Now get off my drive. Bye. Like and subscribe.